How does this happen? Look at this Tennis Channel poll. Who will win? Roger, Rafa. Nadal in 3 sets, 19%. Nadal in 5 sets, even less. Nadal in 4 sets, 36%. But who thinks Federer will win? The majority. Here I go making this thumbnail thinking I'm being so risque. I'm so cutting edge. Going all in saying Federer will win. And it turns out that's what freaking everybody thinks. Welcome to the Coffee Break Tennis Podcast. I am your host, Matt Bradshaw, gifted with the tennis IQ of Roger Federer and with the tenacity, the play every point like it's the most important point of the match attitude of Rafa Nadal, all rolled up in one man, one host, one show. Today, well, happy Fedal to you. It's like Christmas, and it's going to be hard to go to sleep. That's why I don't have coffee. It is late. I have, you guessed it, the sleep tea. But you know what? I've also got, listen to this sound. Guess what it is? Do you hear the fizzing? It's the sparkling, Italian sparkling mineral water. They've been such good luck this fortnight at the French Open. I decided if I drink both, not only will the sleep tea help me go to sleep so I can wake up in time to see Roger and Rafa live, Roger will probably win. He'll probably win, thanks to my beverage choices. And I didn't shave. I've done everything I ever do to get a Roger win. Today on the show, we're going to go through the latest weather numbers. We'll talk about how the weather was not quite as bad as many of us thought it could be for the quarterfinals that happened earlier today. We'll go through the final statistics, all averaged together, of 1 through 4. How about that? Our semifinals, our final 4. Number 1, Joker. Number 2, Rafa. Number 3, Roger. Number 4, Thiem. We'll talk about the matches that happened today, of course, and we will talk about the matches that are going to happen tomorrow. And, of course, our patron saints of Coffee Break Tennis, our Patreon subscribers, are going to get bonus show. So after you've listened to this show, make sure you go over to patreon.com/coffeebreaktennis. If you're not already a patron saint, sign up right there. For less than the cost of a Starbucks coffee, one freaking coffee per month, you can help the fastest growing tennis show in the world grow even faster, get even better, and you'll get more of Coffee Break Tennis, which is a pretty good deal. It's a pretty darn good deal. So go over there if you're already a member, and there will be a special link to the rest of this podcast after you finish listening to the first part, which is a very important part, of course. So let's take a look at the weather first. Put it on the screen, Mr. Man. This is the most recent thing. It is recently changed. There was a slight bit of sunshine while cloudy. You know, the logo where you see how there's just a cloud without a rain coming out of it, and then there's wind gust under that starting at 4 p.m. There was, earlier today, a cloud with sun behind it at, I think, 2 p.m. That has been changed. Also, the temperatures were slightly higher. The lows are lower than they were last time we did a show and we talked about the weather. Now, real quick, it was sunnier. Now, we knew the weather wouldn't be as bad for the quarterfinals today, the Djokovic-Zverev match and the Dominic Thiem and Karen Gatta-Catch-em-all Pokemaster match, which was actually a pretty good match despite being a straight sets. If you watched it, I watched that whole match, start to finish. It was pretty good. Dominic Thiem looks incredible. Dominic Thiem is now playing very close to his very best. Djokovic, the first set for sure, not close to his very best. After that, he played better, but how much of that is Sasha kind of losing all the air? I mean, Joker knows it. It's like when you're winning, you're up 5-0, or you win a bagel, but you kind of know, yeah, my opponent played really bad. It's not really me. It's kind of me getting lucky. That's not exactly what happened, but come on. The double fault. And wasn't there later in the match, was it 2 or was it 3 double faults in a row from Sasha? Just some of the misses from Sasha, some of the volley misses. Credit Sasha for sensing good times to go in and finish. But, man, there was one volley in particular, a forehand he put straight in the net that that looked kind of like my forehand volley. My forehand volley is getting a lot better, but that used to be a big problem. I think what that is you just catch it a little late. You don't really go to it. You kind of let the ball go to your forehand, and it's kind of behind you, and you don't see the ball quite as clearly, and you just totally mess it up. Anyways, the weather was sunnier, and the ball was moving more, but the big thing with Dominic Thiem was he was just all over Karen Catch'em all over him. And Dominic Thiem must have been listening to the show. He sometimes does, because he was all over that baseline. Obviously, he played like Rafa. He played like peak Rafa. Dominic Thiem put in a perfect performance. He looks like he can beat Djokovic. He really does. Here's what I'm thinking is going to happen. It's going to be just all-out warfare, kind of like Tsitsipas and Stan. I have a feeling whoever comes through Roger or Rafa, and obviously I think it's going to be Roger, will have a real shot to win on Sunday, because it's going to be a supreme battle between Djokovic and Thiem. Because Djokovic is going to bring it and raise the level. That's the thing with Rafa and Joker. They haven't really been fully tested yet. Nishikori could have tested Rafa, but Nishikori had already gone through so much. He didn't have enough left. And who knows, he's probably dealing with some kind of little injury. Maybe it's not full-blown yet. Maybe he's just worried. I always talk about Rafa, how it must be so hard to know in the back of your mind, how far am I away from the next injury? Because you know it's coming if you're Rafa. How about Nishikori? It's been worse for him, wouldn't you say? Either way, it's close. They both have dealt with so many injuries. All right, anyways, back to the weather. It's going to be colder. So if we look at the weather on the screen, we got a 12:50 p.m. start time for Roger and Rafa. 65% chance of rain, 80% at 11 a.m. It should still be raining at noon, but it drops to 30, and then 25, and then 40, and then pretty much done for the rest of the day after 3 p.m. But by 1 p.m., it drops to 30, so fingers crossed we actually start the match on time. It may not start at 1 p.m. or 12:50 or whatever. So if you got to wake up at a ridiculous hour, maybe sleep in an hour, sleep an extra hour, and don't be surprised if you wake up and the match still isn't on. But who knows? A lot of times we think it's going to rain for sure, and it doesn't. So I'm just going to say the match will start at 1 p.m. So what is that? Is that 7 a.m. East Coast time for me in the U.S.? And it's going to be 61 degrees. Now remember, what was it? Was it 78 when Roger and Rafa played last time at the French Open? And today, it was 68. So very nice temperature. 68, it was 20 degrees Celsius, which is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, there you go. It was 20 C. And that's, cooler, but it's very nice to play in that kind of weather. But the big thing is the sun. The sun was out. Sun's out, guns out, Seriously, because the sun will heat up the court, and that speeds up conditions. Even if the temperature, especially on a hard court, it can be cold outside, but very, very sunny, and it'll still kind of heat up the court, and you'll still get the effects. The sun does a lot. So I'm sure it was a big factor today. There will be no sun. You see all those? You either got rains and clouds or winds and clouds. There is no sunshine for Rafa. That's a major, major thing. So there's your look at the wind on the right after that. It starts 16 miles per hour. That's really not fast enough to be a major deal. I've heard all kinds of people say the wind favors Rafa, the wind favors Roger. Some people think that, since Roger has to time the ball so early and Rafa's just going to stand back and crush that thing, that Rafa will be less bothered by the wind. I can remember a match years ago where Rafa won in windy conditions, and afterwards he said, the wind, it's going to affect everyone, both players on the court. And I just block it out, and I stay super focused on my game, and I was able to deal with it better than my opponent. And I thought, hey, that's what I got to do when I play tennis. Anything that's happening bad around me, block it out, know that my opponent's dealing with it too. But then I remember another match years later where Rafa lost, and he was kind of upset about the wind in the press conference, saying, it really messed with him. It really bothered him. So who knows? Point is, the wind isn't too bad until we get later in the day. 4 p.m. it's at 21. By 6 p.m. it kicks up to 25. So if you believe that the guy who's whipping the ball is less bothered by wind, and the guy who relies on very perfect timing and contact, Djokovic should have a harder time with the wind than Dominic Thiem later in the day, and they will get 25-mile-an-hour winds, whereas Roger Rafa, it'll be more like 16, 17, maybe 19, 20. All right, enough about the weather. This is not a weather show. Let's look at the numbers for everybody. This is very interesting. Put this up. A very special friend of mine put this together. I actually had a version of this from Ollie earlier in the tournament, and I never got around to using it, which is a shame because this stuff is great. So Roger is the king on second serve, which makes sense because his career numbers are the best. He's winning 63% on second serve. That's significant, but Joker is doing the best on first. Now, if you look at the average rank of the opponent played, Dominic Thiem's opponent, average ranking 59. Djokovic 69. Nadal and Federer have enjoyed the most low-ranked players. Federer's average 75. You can see it above that. The first guy plays is 74. Second, 144, that would be Oscar Otte, the otter from Germany. 63, 68, 28 in the world is Wawrinka. Look at Djokovic. He played 5 in the world. That looks like, he had a much tougher round. But come on. Sasha Zverev, 5, and Wawrinka, 28. We all know Wawrinka was the much bigger challenge. One thing I was saying, I didn't say it on the show, I meant to, and I've heard other people say it since. Peter Freeman said it. Wawrinka looked like he was playing well enough to beat Nadal or Djokovic or anybody, and Federer beat him. So let's not have that be lost on anyone. That is very significant. Nadal, 82, and the average for Djokovic. He has the highest ranked average, 69 in the world, is the average of all the opponents he's played. But again, the 5 from Sasha brings that number way down on the average. And same with Rafa, playing 7 in the world. Nishikori, he could have challenged Rafa, but I don't think he had enough left by the time he got there. And it's hard not to feel sorry for the guy because this just happens so much. He's obviously got a game where he can challenge anyone, but he rarely gets deep in the tournament feeling well enough to actually be able to execute. So, with that said, Dominic Thiem's obviously played the highest ranked average. I don't know. I'm spending too much time. It's probably not too big of a deal. The biggest takeaway from all of that for me is that no one has faced as big of a test as Roger Federer playing Wawrinka, I would say, by far. And Khachanov was actually bringing a lot of game and playing pretty well, so it's pretty significant. Dominic Thiem took down Khachanov in less than 2 hours, straight sets, and Dominic Thiem, to me, he looked so much like Rafa Nadal. Is there any more stats? Let's look at some more significant stats. So Djokovic is playing well on the first, but you all saw it. Let's talk about Djokovic, Sasha Zverev. That first set, Sasha Zverev really could have won. And what happened? The usual stuff. After the match was over, Sasha Zverev said that he's number 1 in the world for a reason. Sasha had a good attitude about it. He was upset. He said, yeah, it's quarterfinals, but my seeding says I'm supposed to make the quarterfinals. My world ranking. Because he's 5, right? If he was 4 in the world, then he should have made the semifinals according to his seeding. So he's not happy with just getting the bare minimum done. That's good. That's encouraging. He should feel good because his game has been trending up. He's been digging out of the slump. He shouldn't feel great. He shouldn't be happy. But he should at least know, look, things have been getting better. But anyways, he said, Djokovic is number 1 in the world for a reason. I should have won the first set, and after that, it was just too much. And he's number 1 in the world for a reason, meaning it's too much because he's got all that game being Djokovic. He's Djokovic, man. And yeah, that's right. Djokovic, we can't forget, if he wins here, he's on a, 7-4, he's on a 26-match winning streak right now, Djokovic, at Grand Slams. And if he wins this tournament, which I don't think he will, but if he does, that's 4 majors in a row. Again, if Roger or Rafa did it, we would all pay much more attention to that. I know it's not in the same year, and don't get me wrong, if Roger or Rafa did it like the Serena Slam, like the Joker Slam, not in the same year, it's not as big of a deal, but it would be a bigger deal if it was Roger or Rafa. So we got to credit Djokovic there. I'm sure some of the Joker faces out there who hate this show but still listen are stunned when I say that. but it's true. So let's give Djokovic his credit. And now I'm going to say something not nice about Djokovic. Amazing. Not Dominic Thiem. Sasha Zverev, he's right. Djokovic is one in the world for a reason, but he's wrong. He had a real chance, and Djokovic has not been the same since the Australian Open this whole year. I know he looked very good in Madrid, Djokovic did, but still, he hasn't been the same, and we saw the same stuff. The forehand came undone. The double faults popped up. The serve, missing spots on the first serve, even though he's winning a very high percentage. He won 80% against Sasha Zverev, but not so well, not so high. I can't remember the average. You know what? Screw it. We need that stat. We need that stat. We must have that stat at once. Where is it? Djokovic. Let's see. I just want to know the first set statistics from Djokovic's match today. All right, got it. We're pulling up stats. Let's see set number 1. I'm going to be shocked if it's... Okay, it's 75. So still pretty high, but it's not the 80. And it's definitely not the 82.4 that he's averaging, which Roger Federer is at 79.8. That's the closest. Dominic Thiem at 79. Rafa at 76.6. With that said... Ironically, Roger's lowest is against Oscar Otta, and he was 77%, 75 there, 77 against Stan. But other than that, Roger's in the 80+%, 83, 80, 84. And Djokovic is 81, 81, 85, 86, 80. So it's comparable. It's very close. And, you know, the 60% on win on second from Nadal and the 60 from Djokovic, it's comparable too. It's pretty close to Federer on 63. So let's say Djokovic and Federer, you know Djokovic is not serving as well as Federer. You just know Djokovic is doing a better job backing up his serve, so he's still got the higher number there. I still think when it comes to these big guys facing off, that Nadal would hurt the Joker serve, even if Joker serves just the same as he has against other people. He'll hurt it more, just like Sasha drove that number down to 75 in the first set and really could have done better than that. Like I said earlier, you know, Sasha made a lot of, to borrow a term from Whoopi Goldberg when she called Dominic Thiem a bonehead. Sasha Zverev did a lot of bonehead stuff at times, but, you know, he had to have been so worn out. When you don't win that first set especially, you got to panic a little because you know you're running out of legs and the clock is ticking on you. So I don't want to be too hard on Sasha Zverev. He's done a good job digging out of the hole that he's been in for so long. One more interesting stat here is Joker's got the highest win percentage at the net, 77. Nadal and Federer are tied at 74. And Dominic Thiem, who only came to net 11 times against Karen Gotta-Catch-'em-all, the Pokemaster, but he won 9 of those. So that's pretty good return on investment. And he's at 73. So these guys are all very close here, but here's the biggest difference. If you count up Rogers' trips to the net, what is that? 54 plus 61 plus another. Rogers darn near 200 trips to the net. So that impresses me to win 74% of almost 200 trips. A lot more than what does Djokovic do here? 40, 50, 60, like 65 trips to the net. So Rogers more than double, and he's still got pretty close to the same winning percentage. But all these guys know on clay, if you can get into net and get your opponent out of position, it's real easy to hit a volley that they just can't get to because it's harder to get your footing set and recover on clay. It's slippery, it's slidery, you know. Least amount of games lost, that would be Rafa at 39. He's really taking care of business. One thing I spent a lot of time looking at was that set that David Goffin won against Rafa today. Rafa has been challenged right there, but Goffin, far from his best, you know. He had so many issues the last couple years, all starting with that ball bouncing into his eye, and even before that when he messed up his ankle really bad. So Goffin hasn't been at his best either, and one thing I've heard a lot of people say that I think is pretty interesting is if Goffin can win a set against Nadal, why the heck can't Federer? And one of the things Goffin did is what Federer is going to do. Take the ball very early, dictate play, and go really big. Go really big on that forehand. and surprisingly enough, attack the Rafa forehand. So the video is called Why Federer Will Beat Rafa. And I'm watching a lot of stuff. I've watched so many matches that I'm like losing my mind. Oh, you know what? Let me just wrap up really quick with Djokovic and Thiem. I will finish that point though, because I know that sucks for me to do that. One thing I've noticed watching, Federer beat Nadal at Indian Wells in 2017 and stuff like that, is that Roger was just taking the ball early and just going. He'd rather hit the ball out and start over than fall behind in a rally and let Nadal get any kind of rhythm. He was always attacking, and a lot of times he's going right at the Nadal forehand. And David Goffin did the same thing in that set where he wins. He might set it up by pulling Nadal wide first, but then he's hammering that forehand. And it's funny, Nadal's game, the more you watch footage of Nadal and try to think, okay, what's Roger going to do? How can you beat this guy? Because I've been treating this like I'm a coach and I'm getting paid money to make a game plan against Nadal. The more you study Nadal's game, the more you see how used to defending his backhand he is. So much of his game is hitting inside-out forehands, inside-in forehands, covering that backhand corner. If he absolutely has to hit a backhand, he'll just rip it cross-court, two-hand backhand cross-court, deep as he can get it, let it roar, the sound he makes when he hits the ball. And he'll hope for something better on the next ball. He'll rip it, and then hopefully it comes back cross-court a little short, and that's when he steps into the court and rips the forehand. Rafa is just trying to get those short balls and dictate play, and he's going to stand back and run around and hit a heavy ball so that nothing you do gets past him, and he's never going to hit anything that you can easily attack. He'll keep that going until he gets a ball that he can put away or just hurt you with tremendously. And the funny thing is, if you go right at his forehand hard, it seems to undo his whole thing. It's like you go over and kick his water bottles out of order or something. Now, if you just direct traffic to the forehand, Rafa's going to destroy you. But if you go hard, or in Goffin's case, obviously he did rip a forehand like 100 miles an hour in that match. But still, we know he's not as powerful as other players. And what he did was like what you would see Federer. Take the ball very early and still go hard as you can manage. Take it early, go hard. And Federer did a lot of that stuff in some of their 2017 matches where, as we know, Rogers won 4 in a row, 5 if you count the Indian Wells this year where Rafa pulled out of the match. Okay, so let me just finish up things with like I said, Sasha Zverev really should have won that first set. And what was one thing I wanted to say I saw? Who was hitting the... Oh, that would be Dominic Thiem. I'll get to that in a second. Obviously, Djokovic played better, but Djokovic, there's vulnerability there. That's my big point. Let's talk about Dominic Thiem. Djokovic took care of business, but like I said in the very beginning of the show, or earlier, whenever I said it, how much of that is Djokovic? Yeah, he picked up his game after being vulnerable and giving Sasha chances to beat him in that first set. He picked up his game. Excuse me. But how much of that is Sasha Zverev just running out of gas and Djokovic being very aware that, hey, you keep up this decent level and Sasha Zverev is toast. Dominic Thiem, he looked like Rafa to me. He looked like Rafa at a very high level. He would fall back and he would rip balls and keep points alive, and he was always looking to step in and take over completely. He was serving well. He was returning from very far back, as always, which, I guess I'm okay with it. He hit some incredible returns. I like it to return closer. But you know what? I'll take it because he got into enough return games returning from so deep. And once he was in the rally, he was so good about sensing when to step up and take over. And even though it was only 11 trips in 3 sets, he was so good about knowing when this is the right time. Kachanov did come to the net at the right time as well, but very frequently he just did not hit the volley well enough. At this level, you got to put the volleys in the right places. It's not just about hit it hard. You got to drop it short enough, or you got to create enough angle, or you got to put it deep enough, but you got to hit the right spots with your volley. Otherwise, you are toast. For so long, we've heard people say, oh, the string technology, it's changed everything. You can't go to the net because you'll just get passed because of these magic strings. There's some truth to that. Yeah, the string technology makes it easier to generate power from anywhere in the court and pass people at the net. But if you come in at the right times, especially here at clay where people are slipping and sliding and losing their footing, and you put that volley in the right spot, you will win. You will win. Dominic Thiem very much impressed me with when he came to the net and how he did it. Just like when he beat Rafa in Barcelona. Dominic Thiem was very good with drop shots and coming into net. Tsitsipas, very good with drop shots. I have a feeling Federer is going to be able to do a lot of damage to Rafa as far back as he's been with the drop shot. All right, we'll talk more about that in a bit. My point is I think Dominic Thiem can beat Novak. I really think we'll get a Federer-Dominic Thiem final at this point. That was what I was thinking as I watched Dominic Thiem play and Djokovic play today. Anything else on that? I guess not. Let's talk about Federer's serve placement. And did I want to talk about that stuff? I'm trying to remember. What am I saving for the patron saints? Okay, let's talk about the drop shot really quick. Stefanos Tsitsipas, he beats Rafa in Madrid. He's able to use the drop volley very effectively. David Goffin, and the drop shot as well. And, it's funny. Sometimes Tsitsipas would hit to the Rafa forehand and go to net. And if he hit him hard enough and put Rafa on the run, yeah, sure, you might get hit with the banana. But even then, if you cover the forehand up the line and be ready to jump, close the net fast enough so you can cover an angle, you can beat Rafa, even with him hitting a forehand if you go to net. And a lot of times, Rafa's running. He's sprinting to that forehand, and Tsitsipas able to hit a little drop volley, and Rafa had no chance to get there. David Goffin, he bamboozled Nadal with the drop shot. A lot of good drop shots from David Goffin, taking advantage of Nadal being way back. Of course, Dominic Thiem did it. If Roger can take the ball early enough, he can keep Nadal back in this area where Nadal is always working to get out of, right? Just like I said today. Dominic Thiem did a good job of getting out of the I'm too far back area. And when he was there, he did a good job of just keeping everything neutral. You can't hurt me. I'm hitting the ball so heavy, you're not going to finish me. Karen, gotta catch 'em all, Pokemaster. And then he would move up to the baseline and take over. So Rafa's doing the same thing, but with these conditions, we talked about it, the cold weather. Can I bring it up one more time? Roger and Rafa are going to play in like 60-degree weather. Keep in mind, last time they played in almost 20 degrees higher in 2011, the last time they played at the French Open. Freaking 8 years ago. By the way, speaking of 8 years ago, 10 years ago, Roger won this thing. 20 years ago, Agassi won this thing. 30 years ago, Michael Chang won this thing. And 75 years ago was freaking D-Day, and the Allies came in, and they kicked the Nazis' arses. So, a lot of cool stuff happened on June 6th. Anyways, where was I? So the weather is going to make it a lot harder for Rafa to hit the shot where he can move up and get out of that area. So if Roger can keep Rafa there, Rafa's vulnerable to the drop shot. It's going to be a big factor. One more thing. This one, credit to Jimmy Arias. I did hear him talking, and he also talked about going hard at the forehand. And I remember hearing that before. He said that for years. And I remember thinking like, that's crazy. Why are you going to hit the Rafa's forehand? What are you, stupid? But he's got a point. The more I study footage, the more it seems to make sense. One thing Jimmy Arias said, and it's true, I saw David Goffin do it. David Goffin, who's no great friend of the net, he drop shotted to the backhand. That's the side you want to drop on Rafa. The two-hand backhand corner, short to the net. Rafa almost always, and Jimmy Arias said this, credit to him, although, watch tennis yourself, you'll see it. Rafa always puts that thing up the line. With the forehand short, when he's getting a drop shot, he's a little better at, he can hit that sideways slice that kind of goes parallel with the net in a way, but he can also push it up the line. With the backhand, he tends to just go up the line unless he's really got enough height to try the angle. And there was one drop shot David Goffin hit in their match. Can't remember if it was the fourth set or the third set where he won, but either way, it doesn't matter. And David Goffin is not going to net. But then he sees Rafa's barely going to get to this drop shot, and he knows, kind of like the way I was years ago, where it's like, oh, you can sense this is the time to go to the net, but you hesitate. He hesitated, but he went. And because it was kind of predictable that Rafa was going to shovel it up the line, David Goffin had no problem getting up there and putting the volley away. So if Roger is going to drop shot, stay to the backhand and cover the net. We've been seeing Roger do this constantly. Roger will drop shot and cover the up the line and then be ready to lunge and cover the angle. He's been great at the net at covering your reply to a drop shot, and I think it's going to be a big factor tomorrow. Let's talk about serve direction. If you look at what happened with Stanislav the Manislav Wawrinka, Roger goes 25 first serves out wide in the ad court. That's serving to his backhand, right? That's if you're Stan, you're standing on the left side of the court. Well, if you're Roger, you're flipped around on the other side of the court, and you're standing on your left side of the court as you serve. That is the ad court, if you can't visualize it. I'm not going to put it on the screen because this is so deep in the video, I don't have time to edit everything and listen to everything. So just visualize with me. You will have, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So Roger went 25 out wide to the backhand, and then on the deuce court, Roger went 20 up the tee, which is still wide to the backhand. If you're Stan, you're getting backhands. 17 wide deuce to the forehand of Stan. 11 up the tee or towards the forehand of Stan. In the ad court, Roger went pretty heavy with at the bodies too. He went 13 at the body in the ad court and 8 at the body against Stan. All tournament long, Roger would go something close to this pattern, mostly wide to the backhand, first and second serve. Roger will hit that slider in the deuce court on his first serve, but you rarely see Roger send much in the way of second serves wide to the left, right, towards the forehand of the serve, because Roger doesn't want to give you second serve forehands. Smart. Same with the ad court. Roger goes 8 wide to the Stan backhand, 10 at the body. I think because Stan is so good off the backhand and the forehand as well, obviously. I think that was a reason why Roger went at the body a lot, just try to jam him up with that second serve. Because instead of letting Stan dictate play, Roger knows just go right at him. That gives me a better chance to start the point off not behind. And against Rafa, it's going to be very important that Roger never starts a point behind. One big takeaway for me that I saw with Roger playing Stan, and that I'm hoping to see when he plays Rafa, is that whenever Roger was getting pushed back, and Roger even admitted it, he played a little further back against Stan, probably just to be more comfortable with the pure raw power of Stan. Just a little, but he was further back. But when Roger sensed that he was getting pushed too far back to the point where it's no longer worth it for him, like he's just going to wear himself tired and not get in the point at all, like he's just going to lose, he's delaying the inevitable, he's going to lose the point when he falls back that far, he would always rip. Backhand or forehand, he would just let it rip. Let it rip, like the Bryan brothers used to sing. And the funny thing is, if you watch 2017 Indian Wells, it seemed like that, like it was even more pronounced. Roger's all over the baseline that whole match. Anytime he's getting pushed a little behind the baseline, he would just rip. He wouldn't care if he missed. He would rather miss and start a new point rather than spoiling the point he was currently in by getting pushed back and run all over. Because one, Rafa's going to pick up energy, right? Rafa's going to get inspired by himself. He's going to get more rhythm. And Roger doesn't want to do that. Why am I going to run left to right, deep in the court, killing my legs for the rest of this match? You know, I'm running out of juice in my legs, and Rafa's getting a good rhythm going. Screw that. Rip it. If I make it, great. I get to go right back on top of the baseline, and maybe I'll go to the net. Who knows? And if I don't, well, then it's out, and okay, I'm not going to waste any energy, and Rafa's not going to get to hit any more balls and feel good about his strokes. Let's start a new point. I really hope we see Roger Federer do that. So here was my point on the serve direction. So we saw that a lot of at the body on the second serve, a fair amount of at the body on the first serve as well, just to kind of catch him off guard, I think. But still, a lot of stuff up the middle. Obviously, he likes that slider, but that's 17. He went with 20 up the tee in the deuce court. A lot of times we would see Stan stretching wide to that backhand, and it seemed like it worked pretty well. If you watch, and this is some of the stuff I'm going to talk about later in the show for the Patron Saints, Patreon people, if you watch 2011 French Open, Roger does this pretty well against Rafa. even though it's the forehand, Rafa's lefty, so it's going to be his forehand going up the tee on the deuce court. But he gets Rafa to stretch so much that it seems like it's well worth it, because it's kind of that thing where you go hard cross court at his forehand, or you go hard at his forehand in general on a rally. He's so used to defending the backhand, it kind of catches him off guard. He's so used to defending his backhand on the serve that, or at the body or whatever, just if you put it right on the tee hard, he's not used to having to lunge out and play his forehand very defensively. So look out for that. We might see a lot of that. Here's my big point, though. Oscar Otta. Remember I did a scouting report video where I said this guy's backhand is better than his forehand. And this is the one match where, of all the matches of this tournament, if you look at every serving stats direction, you can do it on the Roland Garros app. You can see the directions that the guy's serving. Every match, Roger goes very heavy, like 2-to-1 ratio. Let's see, is it 2-to-1? Yeah, more so. Well, not in the deuce court against Stan, because Roger likes that slider. But in the ad court, 25 wide to the backhand, 11 up the tee. So trust me, he favors serving to the backhand, and he always does. He'll go at your backhand hard, and then he'll throw in the other direction and completely catch you off guard. And sometimes he changes this, but you get the drift. At this tournament, he's gone very heavy to the backhand, but not against Oscar the Otter, probably because he watched my video and saw the scouting report saying that the backhand's better than the forehand. So in the deuce court, he went even. Nothing at the body, 16 up the tee to the backhand, 16 out wide to the forehand. And at the ad court, again, he's still going more to the backhand overall, 15 wide to the backhand and 13 to the forehand, but this is much closer than any of his other matches. So this is what I think we're going to see with Rafa, because my big thing, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about on the show before we go over to the Patreon side, I think it doesn't matter where Roger serves with Rafa so much. I think it'll be more like with Oscar the Otter. We're going to see more serves going towards the Rafa backhand, right? Roger's going to, because he normally hits more like this Oscar Otter match. 15 out wide in the ad, 13 up the tee. And he always goes more wide, like 8-4 against Stan on the second ad court. Kick serves, 8 wide, 10 at the body, only 4 up the tee with the Stan forehand. And you actually saw, and same with the deuce court, 13 to the Stan backhand second serves, 14 at the body, and 4 wide, only 4. Whereas you had 3 up the tee to the Oscar Otta backhand, but then you also had 3 to the forehand. Not nearly as many serves. This is a much faster match, a lot less games played, and 5 at the body. So I think you're going to see more go towards the Rafa backhand, but it doesn't matter. The biggest thing is Roger will know going into this, his first serve, if he hits his spots like he does in any match, and he sets up, we'll talk about this in a little bit for the patron saints, if he sets up the patterns and then switches it on you to catch you off guard and get the ace, that's what he's got to do. It's more about the return that Roger has to change things up. That's where he can run into trouble. And that's where we'll talk about Patreon stuff. That's where we'll talk about to our patron saints. So hit the music. Guys, the match tomorrow. Guys and girls. Women. Men. Mana. Frauleins. Enjoy tomorrow. How many more times will we get a match this big with Roger and Rafa? This could be the last one. I doubt it, but you never know. Enjoy tomorrow. If you're one of those people that's such a big Fed fan, you're going to be in a total panic and you're just dying, try to chill. Try to relax. It's going to be quite a show. I think Roger's going to do it. I think the weather conditions are just too good for him. It's going to make it harder for Rafa to fight out of deep in the court. All the variety, it's better than it's ever been for Roger. He's got the drop shot going better. He plays the net better, knows when to go to the net better than ever. I really feel like we're going to finally get a Roger Federer win over Rafa Nadal. But of course, what do I know? I'm just some tennis coach on the YouTubes. Have fun watching the match tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow after it's over. See ya!